To test the effectiveness of new educational materials, students were separated into two groups. The test group used the new materials, but the control group did not. When the two groups were tested, these were the results. The sample sizes of the test group were 60, and the sample size of the control group is 40. The mean of the test group is 79.4. The mean of the control group is 75.3. The standard deviation of the test group is 8.5, and the standard deviation of the control group is 9.2. Test the claim that there is no difference between the population means for the two groups using a level of significance of 0.05. Okay, so we're testing a claim, and clearly we have two different populations that are being compared. So this is going to be a test for the difference in means. And the first thing that we always need to do is identify the groups that are being compared. So clearly we have a test group and we have a control group. We just want to make sure one is labeled as group 1. So I'll call my test group group 1 and my control group group 2. Now that means the claim, the claim here is that there is no difference between the population means for the two groups. And if there's no difference, that means that they are equal to each other. So the claim here is that mu1 is equal to mu2. And that we can put into our hypothesis. So the hypothesis, we fill out a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis. Since this has the statement of equality, it's going to fall under the null hypothesis. I'll go ahead and mark that as the claim. The complement to this is not equal, and that will be my alternative. So this would be a two-tailed test since the alternative hypothesis has a not equals, though the calculator takes care of that detail for us, but it's good to just understand that that's the case. So next up, we need to find a p-value. So the p-value in this situation, we'll need to get the calculator out for it. And, well, if we go to the stat menu and over to tests, we'll find the different types of hypothesis tests that can be performed. And we're going to use a two-sample t-test, not a two-sample z-test, because the standard deviations that are given are standard deviations for the samples. We don't know what the standard deviation for the populations are, so we're going to use a two-sample t-test. All right, the input, we don't have the data from the samples, we just have the resulting statistics of that data. So go to the stats mode and start inputting the information provided. So group 1 is the test group. Its mean was 79.4. That will go in for x bar 1. Its standard deviation was 8.5, and the sample size was 60. Then the mean of the control group, 75.3. Standard deviations, 9.2. And sample size there is 40. In terms of the type of test, which is being asked here, we have a not equals, so that's a two-tailed test, so we'll leave that checked. We always are going to use pooled set to no, so just leave that as is and calculate. So the test statistic here is 2.25 and the p-value is 0.0272. All right, now that p-value we need to compare to the level of significance. So the level of significance is always given somewhere in the problem to use, and in this case it's 0.05 or 5%. So we will, in making our decision, compare the p-value, which I'll change to a percent, so 2.72%, and the level of significance is 5%. So 2.72 is less than 5%, and if the p is low, the null must go, so we decide to reject the null hypothesis. And that means we have enough evidence to make our decision here. So we'll say here at the, I'll just go ahead and write this in. Okay, so when stating the interpretation, it is good to restate what your level of significance is, because a different level of significance could lead to a different result. So it's not always required by instructors, but it's a good idea. So using a 5% level of significance, there is, and here we want to say there's either sufficient evidence or insufficient evidence. And we're going to say there's sufficient evidence, and that's because the decision was to reject, or sometimes you're just saying there is or is not enough evidence, and that's fine. You would just say is if it's reject, and is not if it's fail to reject. Evidence to, and then in this case we're trying to either support or reject the claim, and the way we do that is the original claim was in the null hypothesis. So here we are trying to reject the claim. So using a 5% level of significance, there is sufficient evidence to reject the claim that there is no difference between the population means for the two groups.